Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_dada. Well, just want to say once again, I appreciate everybody that's being patient. I know Spotify is still not working. I'm still getting very, very minimal support from the people who asked me to move over, so I am 2 seconds away from going nuclear option here, but anyways, that's not your problem. I guess want to say sorry for all the inconvenience. And obviously my biggest fear is that people are going to be like, well, I guess this guy's gone, screw him, and go find some other Packers podcasts, and I lose loyal listeners, and I'm going to freaking lose it if that's the result of deciding to switch over. But anyways, appreciate those of you that are here that can hear me. Hopefully my Spotify audience is here listening to me. That had better be the result. Today, I want to do Stats Day. Today, we're doing Stats Day. What else we do, I don't know. I did go through and look at some of the press conference stuff. I don't know that there's anything massive there, necessarily. There's a whole lot of, we'll have to wait and see type stuff. Obviously, Wednesday is the big day for injury news. For me, it's Tuesday, so be sure to let me know in the future when you find out. But why don't we just get started here? So we got SIS and we've got NFL, the pro NFL thing. Want to kind of attack the game from different places. We talked about PFF yesterday, so if you missed that, go back and check that out. Again, still like PFF. I'm just becoming more and more disillusioned with the direction that they're heading. And I more or less just don't feel comfortable. I've always looked at PFF stats, which is fine, but less and less comfortable making definitive, declarative, like this is what it is statements, ending it there. I'd like a fuller, bigger picture. So that's what we're going to do today. And I suppose what we'll do, so we're not just bouncing back and forth, we'll just go position by position, so quarterback, SIS, and NFL, and on down the line. Each one kind of has its own thing. Like PFF has some things that the other guys don't have. SIS has some things, and whatever. So whatever they do have, we'll talk about. Whatever they don't, we won't. There's also a lot of other websites. Let's just go deep into it, man. All right, I'm going to pull out every freaking site that I own, and let's just see what we can do. Let's start with the quarterback. So first of all, Malik deserves a lot of praise. I mean, not only, I think the mistake maybe that I've made is that it's sort of like, he didn't do much, but he didn't need to. Really, he didn't fail, and that's the biggest thing. I think maybe he deserves a little bit more credit than that. So let me see if I can do a decent job of representing how good of a job he actually did in this game. Let's go with SIS first and just go through some of the statistics here. If we look at his catchable pass rate, he ranks 6th. This is out of 31 quarterbacks. He ranks 6th from week 2. I don't know what team didn't have a quarterback, but I put minimum pass attempts 10, and I guess that ruled somebody out. On target percentage, second with 93%. Adjusted net yards per attempt, again, pretty solid, just well-rounded. How good of a quarterback do you have number here? 3rd, behind Kyler Murray and Derek Carr. Touchdown percentage, he ranks 6th. Interception percentage, obviously he's tied for 1st with whoever else didn't throw a pick. Passer rating, he had the 2nd highest. Now, I think for some of these Monday Night Football stats aren't going to be on there. I can't imagine. I shouldn't say that. I don't know that either of those two is going to be a top 2-3 quarterback anyway, so I'm not super worried about it. But disregarding those, number 2 passer rating behind only Kyler Murray. IQR, which is SIS's sort of proprietary passer rating thing, puts him 3rd behind Kyler Murray and Derek Carr. What else? EPA. And this is not per play. This is cumulative EPA, 3rd. Which is crazy for a team that did not score a lot of points. EPA is just sort of... It's not my favorite stat in the world, but it's one that I would have thought Malik would not have really been very high on. The Packers didn't score a ton of points. Not that you have to in order to get a high EPA, but I suppose it's sort of a positive play thing, but either way, the cumulative EPA is a cumulative metric, and even there, he has the third highest, again, behind only Kyler and Derek Carr. For reference, he's ahead of Josh Allen, he's ahead of Joe Burrow, he's ahead of Lamar Jackson and C.J. Stroud and Aaron Rodgers and Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold and who we have to, I guess, reference when we talk about good quarterbacks, and Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott and Pat Mahomes, who's way on the bottom because he's actually playing like crap right now and is getting bailed out by his freaking team. And as much as I want to say, well, it's going to catch up to him, no, it won't, because he's going to start playing better and his team's going to continue playing real well and they're going to win another freaking Super Bowl. Anyway, sorry about that. Positive play percentage is actually not that high. Where is he? He's ranks 20th, and that's out of 31. If you look at the boom percentage, so what percentage of his plays actually were really good? Number one, 43% of his plays. Derek Carr was second with 42. Third, it drops to 36th, 6%, and then Lamar was fourth with 27. So just to give you an idea of scale, the fourth highest was 27%. He had 43%. And bust percentage, he was number one with 0%. Only he and Kyler Murray had 0%. That's crazy. And again, it's more impressive for Kyler because he played a lot more plays, right? 21 attempts compared to 14. But still, the highest boom percentage, the lowest bust percentage, second highest EPA. It's impressive freaking stuff. All right, let's go over to NFL, next gen, all that stuff. If we look at CPOE, completion percentage over expected, again, not something I would necessarily think Malik did very well in. If I'm just thinking back, not that he did poorly, obviously he completed all his passes, but like over expected, I don't know that there were a ton of hard throws, but now that you think about it, there was that one he had to sidearm. There were a couple that were pretty close window, whatever. Third highest. Kyler Murray had the highest at plus 19%, Brock Purdy plus 17%, Malik Willis plus 13%. So he completed 13%, 13.2% higher completion percentage than what would have been expected based on the situation. So it's taking into account the pressure in his face. It's taking into account the difficulty of the throw, how far down the field it was, how tight the coverage was, those kinds of things. They're saying if you take a baseline average quarterback, he would have had a 13.2% lower completion percentage. By the way, his completion percentage was 85.7%, which is super high. But what they're saying is it would have been, 72.5%? Would have been like the baseline expectation for him. Their EPA is for some reason different. They had him fourth. Not super different. Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, Josh Allen, then Malik. Still very high. EPA per dropback, Malik Willis goes up to fourth, which makes sense. He had less dropbacks. Actually, he was fourth before. Well, whatever. Doesn't matter. Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, Josh Allen, Malik Willis. Doesn't change anything. What else? Next Gen Stats has... It's kind of an interesting stat here. Average separation, which is obviously more of a receiver stat than a Malik stat, but he was the seventh highest, which I can appreciate because, again, one of the things I said is these guys did a good job of working for Malik. So seventh best situation in terms of guys being open. Washington, Baltimore, Minnesota, Miami, the LA Rams, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Pat Mahomes, again, getting bailed. He's got the best wide receiver situation, still plays like crap, whatever, doesn't matter. And then kind of going along with that, not a direct correlation, but similarly, tight window percentage, he had the fifth lowest. Only 7.1% of his passes were into a tight window. So that's, again, a credit to Matt LaFleur, the tight ends, wide receivers, everybody else for getting open. Because, 93% of his passes, he did not have to throw into a tight window. Only C.J. Stroud, Tua, Lamar, and Skylar Thompson had better situations. Couple of these sites, I keep forgetting how many good sites there are and just really interesting statistics and stuff that they pull, but some of them do not let you filter by week. So Malik either doesn't make the cut or has to compete with people doing it for 2 weeks or whatever. But any opportunity I have to make fun of some of our competition, I'm going to do it. EPA per play for the season so far, Caleb Williams ranks 28th. Will Levis, who we're playing this upcoming week, ranks 30th. If you look at success percentage, what percentage of the time are you successful in executing a play? Caleb Williams ranks 29th. Will Levis is 25th. So Will Levis is actually significantly better. Some of this is crazy. Like Joe Burrow 24th. I'm not disputing it, but it's just crazy. Joe Burrow is 24th, Tua 23rd. Obviously, he's going through some stuff. Justin Herbert, 22nd. So Herbert 22nd, Tua 23rd, Burrow 25th, 24th, Will Levis 25th, Dak 26th, Goff 27th. Then you have Bryce just below Goff. Then Caleb, which is hilarious that it's like below Bryce Young. Then Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, and Deshaun Watson. Bo Nix had like a 4-interception game or something ridiculous. That guy's 2 seconds away from getting benched. Another example of a quarterback that really needed to sit for a while, just like Caleb, probably like Bryce. A lot of guys that are talented, not saying they would automatically become something, but it's like, good Lord, guys. I don't understand why you can't learn. Put them on the bench. Michael Penix, the only of the 6 quarterbacks that got drafted, Michael Penix is the only one that was treated right. Minnesota seemed like they were headed down the right direction. Probably would have stuck with it with the way Darnold is playing, so he probably would have been in a good situation also. But man, the rest of these guys, just throwing them to the wolves. And Drake May, I think the only reason he isn't playing is because he couldn't beat out Brissett, if I'm not mistaken. They would have happily put him out there. Anyways, moving on. What else we got here? Let's check this site. This one's pretty funny. Another one I can't really adjust for. I believe this is ELO, but I'm really not entirely sure where this metric comes from. But on the NFL ELO website, they've got a value versus average starter metric. So, for example, you got kind of the closest to average right now, Justin Herbert and Tua. Again, kind of surprising stuff or whatever, but it's 0.1 and negative 0.1 on both sides of the spectrum there. At the top, they have Josh Allen, 3.3 points ahead of, your average starter. Then if you scroll down here, we've got Bryce Young at negative 4.3, and then just above that is Caleb Williams at negative 3. Now, granted, that's a pretty big gap between Caleb and Bryce. It's dog crap. But then you've got Will Levis at minus 2.8, just above that. Now, to be fair, that's tied with Malik Willis. But that's the thing with ELO, is it takes the entire your entire history. So this is your entire history. If you look at it, he actually jumped up quite a bit. He was like negative 3.2. He's now negative 2.8 after that performance. He's going to be able to move pretty quickly because he doesn't have much history. And one of the things that really got me going on this to begin with, just when I was kind of flipping through these sites before the podcast, I posted several of these. This kind of became a big thing, especially for me and I think a lot of other people last year when it came to Jordan Love. This is when like CPOE became a thing. It's always been a thing, but it wasn't talked about as much because the thing with Jordan Love was really weird. On one hand, first of all, there's the dynamic of fans that are huge supporters that think he's doing great, and some people like myself who are like, he's doing kind of poorly. And he'd have like the bad first half and the really good second half. It was very confusing. And then maybe even more confusing is that if you looked at his EPA per play, he was like number 1 in the NFL. If you looked at his CPOE, he was like dead last in the NFL. And nobody, I went over this last year, if you remember, I couldn't find anybody in the history of the NFL that was ever where he was like on the chart, the whole XY thing, his position on the chart. Never have I seen a guy there before. I went back all through history, the first however many weeks, as well as the entire season. Nobody was there. Now, that did start to level off a little bit. Anyways, that same chart is what I'm talking about. And if you look at it for even the first 2 weeks, if you set the minimum plays at 20, Malik Willis is blowing the entire NFL out of the water. Now, it's hard to kind of quantify this because it's more visual. It's the point of these whole charts. But, so you've got the X and Y axis. You got CPOE on the X axis, EPA on the up and down Y axis. And then you've got that little trend line that kind of shows, just to kind of give you an idea of the general trend and like if you're above or below sort of the average for each. And so if you look at it, it's one of those things where everybody kind of trends along that line to varying degrees. Some guys are real high, like Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr. There's like a cluster away from the line where, they're high in CPOE, kind of at the end of the line, but then even way higher as far as EPA per play. They're way up there. But there is like a definitive line at just below 10% for CPOE. You got Gardner Minshew, Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Derek Carr, Geno Smith, Jalen Hurts. There's like a clump like that, and then it just kind of depends. Obviously the Murray Allen guys are way high on EPA, and then you got like Minshew pretty low in terms of the value. But then if you follow that trend line way out into frickin' the stratosphere, you have Malik Willis. Malik Willis is closer to about 15% when it comes to CPOE. And then as far as EPA per play, the increments that they have are, 0, then 0.3, then 0.6. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that are above 0.3 when it comes to EPA per play, and Malik Willis is one of them. He's the bottom one. But remember, he is like an entire standard deviation away from everybody else in terms of CPOE. So it's always kind of confusing to determine like who's actually the best. If you're just kind of looking out into the top right, Malik Willis is that dude, but obviously some are higher in EPA per play or whatever. But bottom line is, though, you can very easily look at this chart and say Malik Willis, based on these two metrics, if this was sort of your metric to use, definitely the best quarterback in football through 2 weeks. So again, not at all what I expected. Not saying he actually is the best in football. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek, just kind of goofing around. But, legitimately, way better performance than I think he's being given credit for. Again, I think the general consensus is, first of all, congrats to Matt LaFleur for being a wizard. That's true and well-deserved. Great job by the rest of the offense to support him. But also, dude played at an incredibly high level. Even in the limited capacity that he had, he produced at a high level. Even in sort of cumulative stats like EPA, the production on each individual play was very high. And that also comes from a lack of negative plays, because you think cumulative doesn't just go positive, it also goes negative. So if a guy, plays 100 plays, but it's, -1, +1, -1, he's going to have a 0 EPA. So even if you don't do very much, but it's all positive, you're probably going to have a higher cumulative EPA than a lot of other guys, and that, I think, is his specific situation. We're not going to get through Jack today. What else do we got going on here? All right, I think that's it for Malik. Why don't we take our first break? We'll come back, take a look at some of the wide receiver running back stats, and see where that leaves us. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, let's do one of my new favorite things. Let's talk running backs. So far, if you look at, week 2, Josh Jacobs ran for more yards than anybody else. He ran for more attempts. I'm just having fun with it. I know, like, cumulative yards when you have the most attempts is not the most impressive thing, but I like it because the Packers are never that team. They're just never that team. I don't necessarily expect them to be that team forever when Jordan comes back. But this is exactly why Gutekunst wanted a guy like this, so that if we need to, we can put 30 on a guy to carry the ball and not feel bad about it. And he's doing fine. Again, a lot of the statistics are not going to be super great, mostly because the entire second half was him getting a handoff into 8 guys and going nowhere. So yards after contact was not nearly as good. I can't even find him on here. I'm not going to bother. Same with broken tackles plus missed tackles per attempt as a percentage. Obviously not going to be the highest. His EPA, they actually put at quite a bit negative. Where did he go? I lost him. Here he goes. -4.9. They had him 36th out of 39. So again, a lot of plays, and a lot of them did not go for great yardage. Again, second half screwed all our running backs. Shockingly, Josh Jacobs had 4.7 yards per attempt and ranked 20th. Just absolutely crazy. Obviously, you can average it out by the seasons, but the amount of just crazy yards per attempt games here, 16 had over 5. 11 players had over, or 6 or more, I guess. You had 7 players had over 7 yards per attempt. 4 players had over 8 yards per attempt, and Jerome Ford had 9.1 yards per carry. Crazy week for running backs. Rush yards over expected. Josh Jacobs 11th with just 24. Again, not the greatest in the world, but still positive in that column. And I do care a lot more about rush yards over expected compared to EPA, because EPA is more of a team stat. Again, if you call a play and it's a 1 yard gain on 3rd and 5, that's a massive negative. even if it has nothing whatsoever to do with the running back. It doesn't matter. You're taking a large part of the blame on a massively negative play. Rush yards after contact. Cumulatively, Josh Jacobs dominates. He has 130 yards after contact in this game. Antonio Gibson was second with 90. 130 after contact is just crazy work. Per attempt, he's 8th with 4.1 after contact. That's psychotic. He also had 4 carries over 10 miles per hour. He had 5 carries over 15 miles per hour. So he can get up there. I don't know if we're ever going to see him over 20. We had Jahmyr Gibbs, Jerome Ford, Brian Robinson, James Cook, and Breece Hall hit that. Some of the younger, more speedy running backs were able to do that. I don't know if Josh has got that gear, but he's quick. Hilariously, going to some of these other sites, EPA per rush, Green Bay Packers running back is number 1, but it's not Josh Jacobs, it's Emmanuel Wilson. A couple little things for wide receiver here. Guys that stood out. Romeo Doubs in week 2 ranked 8th in EPA per target. So good on him. It's not super surprising, I suppose. Not a lot of targets, but productive when he was. Similarly, when you look at boom percentage, so what percentage of the time did you do a really good job, he ranked 6th behind tight end Mo Alley Cox, Michael Wilson, Brandon Cooks, Antonio Gibson, and Mike Williams. Almost all of them were at 100%. And by the way, Romeo is the only one with more than 2 targets. So if you had a minimum of 3 targets, Romeo's number 1 with 75%, or excuse me, 75% boom rate. He also will just go cut across the line here. He had a 0% bust rate. So Romeo had a fantastic day. Switching over to the NFL thing, yards per reception, Romeo is also 11th. Catch rate over expected, he was the 5th highest. How many wide receivers are here? They've got, 50? No, 35 out of 50. So 35 wide receivers that made the cut. Romeo was 5th best, 33.2% higher. So his catch rate was 100%. He caught everything, but apparently at least one of those was not expected to be caught. He also had the 5th highest air yards per target, so getting rid of yards after the catch. How far was he targeted down the field? 16.9 yards on average. EPA per target, according to NFL, Romeo Doubs, number 1, and kind of by a lot. Rashid Shaheed is number 2, 1.91. He's at 2.19. And then I want to look at some defensive stuff here, primarily the NFL Pro. Don't expect a ton of things to stand out here. They've got a metric called hustle stops, which is, you got your stops and then you got your hustle stops, I guess. Keyshawn Nixon was 15th, so that's good. Again, the pass rush just not where we need it to be. Nobody shows up on the sack numbers. Nobody shows up in QB pressures. And I'm looking at like the top. Let's see. The top one we had was, according to them for week 2, Kenny Clark with who ranks 27th, which again is just not what you hope to see. I understand there's 32 teams, but when you have guys that you expect to be better than average, like Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, whatever, should expect better than that. If you look at time to sack, time to pressure, how many pressures under 3 seconds, Packers don't show up on any of those. The get off speed, well, that's a silly metric. And listen, maybe I'm being a little unfair because apparently this is out of 353 defensive players. But here's one that stands out. Catch rate over expected. With a negative 68.5, that's the 3rd best, Xavier McKinney. And actually, it's the highest of any DB. One of the guys is Aiden Hutchinson. He shouldn't even be on the list. He only is because they don't allow me to filter this properly. And then Eric Kendricks, who's a linebacker, but he has actually played a decent enough number of coverage snaps. But yeah, just in week 2. So I'm guessing for the season, we can go back and check that. He is one of the best DBs at catch rate over expected because he was solid at that last week as well. Also, Jair ranks 23rd. And again, there's a bunch of guys that shouldn't even be on this list. So he is a top 20 guy. Javon Bullard, 25th. 3 top 25 guys. Isaiah McDuffie, 35th. So the Packers are really good at this catch rate over expected thing. Because that's a lot of names in the top. And again, this is out of 353 players. In fact, I'll pull up some of the team stats in a little bit. And one of the things I want to do is just look at the Packers guys in particular, because some of this, I don't need to compare it, right? I know negative 68.5 is fantastic. I know like a 20 is not good. It's over-expected. So some of these, you don't need to necessarily rank it to get the context of how good it is. And then coverage EPA, I'm assuming negative is positive here. We've got Xavier McKinney 8th, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's the 6th best DB. And then you got Jair Alexander, who's 20th. So call it almost top 15 for just DBs. So Jair, Bullard, McDuffie, and obviously McKinney seem to be showing up quite a bit in these regards here. Isaiah McDuffie 34th on the EPA thing. Tight window percentage, which is how many times do they force you to throw into a tight window? Javon Bullard ranks 9th, and that's with one guy that shouldn't be on the list. So technically he ranks 8th among qualified guys. He ranks 7th among DBs. So that's pretty impressive. Carrington Valentine ranks 30th, so that's also pretty solid for him. Ball hawk percentage, obviously Xavier McKinney is going to be on the list. He's 10th among all defensive players. Javon Bullard 14th on this list. Carrington Valentine 29th. Jair Alexander 33rd. In fact, let's just do that now. I want to switch this to Green Bay Packers and just take a look at all our guys and see how they're doing with these things, pass rush and whatnot. So as of right now, and you know what? Screw this week 2 thing. I'm just curious where everybody's at. Let's look at the regular season in total for the Green Bay Packers. So passer rating when targeted, right now Xavier McKinney is a 2.8. That's pretty incredible. Rashawn Gary doesn't really matter, but he's at a 39.6. He's had 3 snaps in coverage. Sorry, the whole Joe Barry thing is still a thing. So sometimes he's not actually in coverage. He's, like when he gets out in space, whatever, it doesn't matter. Jair Alexander is the next lowest at 81.9, then Stokes 86.8. Then for DBs, it's Quay, then Keyshawn, then Bullard, and then Isaiah McDuffie is the worst at 128.1. Let's just do catch rate over expected. From best to worst, you got Rashawn Gary right there, negative 90.5. Xavier McKinney, though, among DBs, negative 25.1% on the season. Isaiah McDuffie, negative 12. Jair, negative 11. Then you got about dead average is Keyshawn Nixon at plus 0.3. Quay is plus 2.3. Bullard is plus 4.5. Stokes plus 5.8. And that's it among DBs. EPA in order, massively, Xavier McKinney way out in front. Negative 8.9, which is really incredible that that's what he's producing. Then Jair is negative 1.3. Then Keyshawn, again, about dead average, negative 0.2. Then McDuffie plus 1.5, Stokes plus 2.7, and Bullard plus 4.7. So, week 1 was rough. Week 2, he took a big step forward, so he's trending in the right direction. Average separation. Jair Alexander, on average, allows 2.3 yards per separation. He's best on the team. McKinney, 2.6. Quay, 3. Bullard, 3.1. Keyshawn, 3.8. McDuffie 4.3, Stokes 4.6. So we might be getting a little insight as to why Stokes didn't necessarily make the cut. And actually, these are only qualified defenders, so some of these guys aren't on the list. In a second, I want to check like Carrington Valentine, just see where he's at. Didn't get enough snaps to make this list, but I just want to go back and see what's going on there. Let's see, tight window throw percentage. Again, Stokes is the highest at 33, then Bullard 25, Jair 16.7, Keyshawn 15.4, Quay 14.3. Xavier has not forced a tight window, although I don't know if I've seen him in coverage at all. Hawk percentage, Xavier 66, Jair 25, Bullard 25, McDuffie 12, Keyshawn 7, Stokes and Quay 0%. All right, a couple other guys that we didn't get to talk about because they haven't played a ton, but I'm still curious. Let's go with passer rating. Evan Williams is at a 95.8. Carrington Valentine, 72.9. I think those are the only two. Oh, Edgerrin, 0. We'll throw Edgerrin in the mix, although, never mind, he's at 0s across the board. He's had 6 snaps in coverage, apparently was never targeted, which is not a bad thing. Oh, well, I mean, Eric Wilson had 7 snaps, so I guess it kind of counts. 41.7. All right, catch rate over expected. Let's see. Eric Wilson, negative 6.9. Carrington Valentine, negative 6.9. Evan Williams, plus 9.6. So that's not the best. EPA, negative 3.4 for Wilson. Remember, negative is a good thing. Carrington is plus 1. That's still kind of, over. Well, I guess he didn't play a ton, but we'll say that's pretty close to average, I guess. And Evan Williams, plus 1.8. Average separation, Eric Wilson is actually at the top, just 1.3 yards of separation. Williams is actually number 2, just 1.9 yards. Valentine is 4th from the bottom at 5.8. Tight windows forced, Eric Wilson and Carrington Valentine tied for number 1 at 50%. None of the other guys forced any. Ball hawk percentage, Eric Wilson 50%, Carrington Valentine 50%, Evan Williams 50%. So there you go. High for all 3. And then let's tick back to pass rush real quick before we take our break, just because I want to look at the rest of this team, just kind of how they compare in general. So let's see. So sack percentage so far this season, most of the team has 0. Rashawn Gary is getting a sack 2.1%. Devontae Wyatt 2.5. Keyshawn Nixon 25. Quarterback pressure rate. Devontae Wyatt is the highest at 14.3%. Kenny Clark, 11.5%. Rashawn, exactly 10%. Preston, 6.5%. TJ Slayton, 3.8%. Lucas Van Ness, 3.8%. Carl Brooks, 3.8%. Keyshawn, 2.9%, surprisingly low. McDuffie, 2.7%. Kingsley, 2.6%. Yikes. Javon Bullard, 1.4%. Anybody else that's interesting in here that actually... Here we go. Quay Walker, 10 attempts, 0 pressures. I mean, is there a single metric about Quay that is impressive right now? Even last year, that was the thing that was working for him. Like, dude, he's pretty good with pressures. 10 pressures, 0 attempts. He has 0. The only guy with a 0% that's got a decent chunk of actual attempts. Anyways. Time to sack. This isn't necessarily the worst thing, but it's kind of interesting to see who can get there the fastest. For Devontae, and it's like, what do they have? 1 each. For Devontae Wyatt, it was 3.91 seconds. Rashawn, 3.96. Keyshawn, 6.28. Now, that's not good because essentially none of those were like just sacks. Those are like all coverage sacks. 4 seconds is essentially a coverage sack. And yeah, each one just has 1 sack so far this season. And the quickest one was Devontae Wyatt, 3.91 seconds. And I don't know at what point you officially call it a coverage sack, but that's not great. Let's see what the robot says. I'm curious. It says, if the quarterback holds the ball for more than 3.5 to 4 seconds before being sacked, is often attributed to coverage rather than quick pressure by the defense. So it's, I guess it's kind of a range. 3.5 to 4 second mark is a common threshold used by analysts when discussing coverage sacks. So presumably anything after 3.5, all of them are. Again, not great. I mean, you got to be able to occasionally get to the quarterback in that 3-second range. 2.5, 3 seconds. That's just beating a guy and getting to the quarterback, And then the average time to pressure. So how much time does it take before the quarterback is under duress? Now, this is going to change. I mean, if you only have, for example, 1 pressure. So I'll give you this example. Javon Bullard has 1 pressure. He got there in 1.7 seconds, which is fantastic, and is also because he's extremely fast. That's just the way that goes. But that would probably average out over time. Some other guys that only have 1 pressure, to kind of give you that one glimpse, also the guys that are all the fastest. Again, not surprisingly, because eventually you're going to be chasing a guy around for 6 seconds. That's going to screw with your average. But whatever. Carl Brooks, 2.2 seconds. Super fast. TJ Slayton. Granted, he's lined up nose to nose with the quarterback almost, but he's actually hit this a couple times being pretty quick. 2.6 seconds. Lucas Van Ness, 2.8. Now we get to some other guys. Kenny Clark has 6 pressures, so this is averaged out pretty well, and he gets there in 3.02 seconds. Sorry about the volume went down for a second. I'll try to fix that post-production. Anyways, Kenny Clark is quick. Now, again, he's on the inside, so he's got a faster track, but so are some other guys that are quite a bit slower. So Kenny Clark, 3.02 seconds, and he also ties the team in most pressures. So certainly have some concerns with Kenny, but he obviously has some value. You lose Kenny, you drop 6 pressures for a team that's, individually not getting a bunch. That hurts. Anyways, Keyshawn Nixon has 2 pressures, 3.15 seconds. Kingsley just 1 pressure, which is real rough. Kingsley is struggling. Lucas Van Ness, obviously not where we want him to be. I was hoping he'd take a jump. I feel like he's kind of not as good. But again, first 2 weeks, the whole D-line has looked ugly. We'll give it some time here. But 3.4 seconds on his 1 pressure. Rashawn Gary averages 3.44. I love Rashawn. I will say one of the things that stands out is he is not super fast. It's not to say that he's not. He is fast. Just if you look at the way he pass rushes, he kind of has that whole, like, I'm going to stand up and, like, do the Jackie Chan, whoa, kind of deal, try to, he does a lot of stuff. And we'll get to the get off as well, where I don't think he's exactly the fastest. He still seems to me, although he is a talented guy, to be mostly a power guy, which is fine. It's great, but there's not a huge amount of speed, or at least he's not utilizing it as much as I would hope. And then Isaiah McDuffie, 3.5, Wyatt, 3.68. Now, granted, you saw how he got one of those pressures, right? Or how he got his sack. He had to loop from the inside all the way around to the outside and then got to the quarterback. So stuff like that is going to mess with you or mess with your averages. But, again, just in a very simplified fashion, I see Devontae Wyatt as a guy that is nothing but speed, and so you'd hope that he can kind of get that number down. And then Preston Smith is actually the slowest. He only has 3 pressures on the season in 2 games, and his average time to pressure is 4.03 seconds. So not the best. Quick pressures, Kenny Clark leads the team with 3. Everybody else just has 1. So, again, some of these guys like Kenny, they've got not the fastest time to pressure, but occasionally, once in a while, you get one. So it's also a good question to ask. Let's kind of disregard all the crappy 6-second chasing a guy around thing and just look at how often can you just get there. Right now, Bullard 1, Brooks 1, Wyatt 1, McDuffie 1, Keyshawn 1, Gary 1, Clark 3. So Clark, there's a lot of asset there. I think the consistency is terrible. I think the run defense and tackling is terrible. I think as a pass rusher, he's still maybe one of the more talented. He's a quick. As far as just beating a guy real quick inside and making a play, he is by far the guy. We'll see as the season goes on, but that's it. Then you got the get off speed. Get off speed, I think, is just tracking how quickly you cross the line of scrimmage, and this is kind of the thing I was talking about with Rashawn Gary, where it's like, okay, you're in the 3-point stance, fire off, as quick as you can. We'll go from slowest to fastest. TJ Slayton, again, not super surprising, big dude, 1.08 seconds. Kenny, 1.03. Wyatt, 1.02. So those are your defensive tackles for the most part. Rashawn Gary, 0.96, so our slowest edge rusher across. Preston, 0.91. Quay, 0.91, which is relatively quick because he's probably starting from a little deeper, maybe not always. Carl Brooks, 0.89. Now, we're going back to D lineman. He's a smaller D lineman, but that's some fast get-off, man. He is, boom, he's across the line. McDuffie, 0.87. Kingsley, 0.87. So he's quick, just not productive. Lucas Van Ness, 0.84. Then you got Keyshawn, 0.64. Bullard, 0.56. And that's it. So, again, Van Ness and Inigbare and whatnot, there's value there, especially... it's not that big of a difference. But yeah, Van Ness has got the speed, but it sure would be splendid if they could be a little bit more productive. Please excuse me. I wish I wasn't so popular. And then finally, and I love this metric, and I've mentioned this several times, like some guys don't get credit for picks when they should. I remember Rashawn Gary, like early, first, second year or whatever. There were like 2-3 picks that were because of Rashawn, and everyone's pissed because like he's not getting the sacks or whatever. It's like, yeah, but it's a big deal when you get in the quarterback's face and he launches that thing in the air, or he hits his arm, or does whatever, and that ends up on our, I'm trying to get all smart talking about tax forms. I don't know, in the column, whatever, as a pick. That should go to their credit. It's you get a half sack if you meet the quarterback there. You should get a half pick or something, an assist. So, anyways, they do track that. Devontae Wyatt is credited with one, as is my Isaiah McDuffie. So, interceptions caused by guys up front being disruptive. That's a big deal. Just the fact that, first of all, the fact we have, 5 interceptions in 2 weeks is insane. I think we had, 7 last year? I'm just saying numbers that I've heard on social media. Don't fact check me. I'll look into that in a minute. But the fact that we have 2 picks already because of Wyatt and McDuffie being disruptive and getting to the quarterback. That's awesome, because things like interceptions in which one or whatever. It really is a team effort. You look at, for example, that errant pass that went into McKinney's chest, and you go, well, that's not that impressive. That's just the quarterback sucks. And it's like, well, there's still an element of, number one, guys being in the right places. Number two, people having their eyes on the quarterback and making sure you put yourself in the right place once you see that ball go up in the air. And then number three, you got to come down with it. How many times? I mean, we already saw Quay once this year. How many times have we seen guys like Jair just drop it? Or what? It's like it's right there. And we had Keyshawn as well. I mean, we should have 7 interceptions right now, by my count, maybe more. But there's a lot that goes into it, and pressure is a big part of interceptions, causing the quarterback to panic and make bad decisions and throw under pressure and hit while he's thrown and everything else. So, anyways, there's a lot to improve, but it's all kind of coming together so far. And with the Titans coming up, it's going to be a tough challenge with our offense against their defense, but I'm looking forward to what our defense can do to that offense. I really am excited about it. All right, why don't we take a break? We'll come back. I just want to look at a couple things team-related, offense and defense, and then I suppose we'll get up on it. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so I know this is mostly about checking how we did in week 2, but I just want to know where we're at. So I'm going to focus more on for the season right now. We got things like DVOA and some other metrics that I want to look at just to kind of give us some perspective, because stuff's crazy right now. I don't even know who's good, who's bad. Let's just take a minute to kind of reassess where we're at. First of all, one of the funniest stats, I'm looking at offensive stats first, pass percentage. Now, we know why this is going to be skewed and in what direction, but it's still funny. For a team that was one of the most pass-heavy teams in forever, to be sitting here right now, of course with Matt LaFleur at the helm, who, we always thought that the run was going to go through the roof when he got here, they ranked 29th in pass percentage. 40.8% of the time they pass. Only the Chargers, Steelers, and Saints pass less. Hilariously, the Bears are 8th in pass percentage, meaning they're one of the pass-heaviest teams, which I find hilarious. They are actually the pass-heaviest team in the NFC North. The Lions are 10th. Where the heck are the Vikings at? Vikings are 21st. What a world we're living in. Points per game, Packers are 13th, 22.5. Pretty middle of the pack. Obviously, we want that to increase once Jordan gets back. Kind of just do what you got to do to survive. Yards per game, though, Packers are 5th, which, on one hand it's positive, on the other hand it's negative. If you're 5th in yards, but you rank, 13th in points, there's a problem, right? And the problem is you're not getting, and we know that. That was the problem week 1. All those turnovers, in good position, we couldn't score. Same with this, just figuring out how to actually pull points out when we need it has been the issue. But I have faith in Matt LaFleur and the crew to be able to figure that out. Receivers seem to be picking it up. Offensive line is picking it up. Josh Jacobs is awakening. So I'm excited about it. Additionally, yards per play, 4th highest. The Saints, Vikings, and Colts are the only 3 teams ahead of us. Vikings, when you throw a 97-yard touchdown or whatever craziness that is, obviously your per play average is going to go up a little bit. Touchdowns, the Packers are 14th, so, or actually they're tied for 12th with 4. Only 11 teams are better, but the Saints are just out of control right now with 11. They're ahead of Buffalo. I don't know what and the Jets, obviously they have Rodgers now, but still, it's just weird to see that. You got the Saints number 1 and the Jets number 3. EPA per play, they're 7th, and I do like EPA a little bit more as a team stat because there's less nuance to it. It's just how good were your plays, whether the running back has to do with the offensive line, et cetera, but as a team stat, it's pretty solid. And they're sitting, again, 7th. And the bottom line is it's positive, and that's a good thing. Houston Texans, Minnesota Vikings are at exactly 0, so that's the average. There are only 10 teams above that have positive EPAs. Let's see where we're at here, because I know they're down there. There they are. The Bears are 30th with negative 0.35. It is funny, I must say. Passing yards per game, they're 18th. Passing yards per play, though, the Packers are 6th. So, they're not passing much, and they're not, obviously, as a result, getting a lot of cumulative yards. But on a per-play basis, they're 6th highest. So when they complete a pass, on average, it's 7.3 yards. That is second in the NFC North. Vikings are second. Again, I don't know. I'm curious. One of these days, maybe tomorrow, we're going to poke around the NFC North, see what's going on. I need to look at the Vikings and just get a grasp. I don't think I've watched any of their games. Maybe I'll go back and watch them. Just figure out what the heck is going on. In fact, give me 1 second. I just want to see if Darnold did it again as far as his grades. No, he dropped off pretty significant. And that's what I said. It wasn't bad. It was close to a 70. He didn't have a bad day. But in terms of, the statistics even look better. 268, 2 touchdowns and a pick compared to 208, 2 touchdowns and a pick. But PFF significantly less impressed with Darnold. And so that's what I said. He has these 88 PFF grade games. Usually he'll have maybe 3 or 4 of them a year, which is pretty good. The problem is he drops back down into the 60s and 50s a lot. This was a 69.5. So anyway, I'm just curious. I'm just panicking a little bit about Darnold, and now I'm feeling a little better. All right. EPA per pass, they're 5th. So yeah, the Packers, when they pass, do a really, really good job. They just don't do it a ton because of the situation that we've been in. Obviously, the Eagles game was tough, and then we come out and just run like crazy. So it's a very good sign that the passing is working. They're just not doing it much. Rush yards per game, not surprisingly, Packers number 1 in the NFL. When was the last time the Packers had the most rush yards of any team? Has that ever happened? Do we have to go back to the Lombardi era for that to happen? That's crazy. They are the only team to crack 200 yards so far. Second highest is Chargers with 197.5. Packers at 212. Rush yards per attempt, the Packers are second. So again, as a team, you look at Josh Jacobs, sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's 4. As a team, though, 5.7 yards per attempt when they run the ball. Why are you popping up, ad blocker? I don't need you right now. EPA per rush is a little bit lower. Makes sense. They haven't actually been as productive. Week 1, the rushing was kind of bad. Week 2, again, early on it was good. Second half, it was bad. Right now, they're 16th in EPA per rush. Again, I'm not panicked about it because I think we started to see that develop. And the only reason it kind of died down is because it was the only thing we were doing and they keyed in on it. My hope is the offensive line continues doing what they're doing, and sooner than later, Jordan Love comes back and, et cetera, et cetera. All right, what else do we got? How about QB pressure rate? The Green Bay Packers are 26th, and that's, by the way, in terms of, we should probably flip this. Number 1 is the most pressured team, which is the Tennessee Titans, which, again, makes me very happy. Let me just dive into this, because this is for another day, but let me just get it off. I've been going crazy on social media, way too distracted with nonsense. The good thing, though, about getting into arguments is that sometimes they ask questions and I don't know, so I have to look it up. And the more I dig, the more I kind of, I don't want to say learn necessarily, but formulate my own opinion. I might be wrong. One of the things that I've always pointed out is that people want to say, and this always happens because of the Bears. They said it with Justin Fields. They're saying it again with Caleb. How could anybody handle this level of pressure? And the Chicago Bears are 3rd highest, 43.2%. What I'm saying, though, is you're putting the cart before the horse. If you look at the most pressured quarterbacks, they just so happen to be the worst quarterbacks. Now, if you want to, you can say Will Levis and Caleb Williams and Justin Fields and Deshaun Watson. These are all good quarterbacks, but they're just struggling because of the pressure. If you want to do that, that's fine, but you got to do it for all of them. You can't cherry pick. Here's my contention. Let me just throw another theory at you, and you can take it or leave it. Bad quarterbacks a lot of times are bad quarterbacks because they can't punish you when you send a blitz 53% of the time. I mentioned this before in the Bears game. DeMeco Ryans blitzed the Bears more than he's ever blitzed anyone in his entire history with the Houston Texans. The game plan going in was very simple. Caleb Williams cannot mentally process the game right now. Maybe he'll figure it out. I don't know. But with guys like Fields and guys like, I think, Levis, he's also still a young guy. But I think the general understanding is this is not Aaron Rodgers. This is not Tom Brady. These are not the kind of guys where it's like, we can't blitz, because if we send extra blitzers, he's not going to panic. It just means we have less guys in coverage. He's going to see the blitz. He's going to call the right play. He's going to make the right adjustments, and we're screwed. He's going to tell this guy to run a quick, hitch route or an out or an dig, whatever, flywheel, camshaft, whatever route, and they're going to pick up the first down. These guys are not doing that. So when I see Will Levis as the most pressured guy, 53.4, we can sit here and make the most easy assumption, which is, wow, they have a terrible offensive line. That's lucky. I have a feeling if you look at who is the most blitzed, you're also going to see these guys near the top. Could be wrong. Could be entirely wrong. Could also, other factors like holding onto the ball too long, whatever, along with the offensive line might not be. It doesn't matter, but the bottom line is defensive coordinators are attacking the Tennessee Titans because they know Will Levis is going to mess up. Very similar to Anthony Richardson. That's where I think Jalen was tough because they dialed up pressures, they got there, but Jalen was, PFF said he was terrible, whatever. I'm just saying, from my perspective, at least in his ability to, in 1 second, say, whoop, guys come in and just dump it off to the right. That was impressive to me. A lot of guys can't do that. Will Levis can't do it. Caleb can't do it. Justin Fields can't do it. Doesn't sound like Deshaun Watson right now can do it. So I think a lot of bad quarterbacks see a lot of... Let me give you one final example. Jordan Love against the Chiefs. Do you remember that game? They sent a blitz. I swear it was 90% of the time. He was under pressure nonstop. It wasn't because the offensive line just suddenly sucked. It was because the defensive coordinator said, this guy can't handle it. He won't know what to do. You have to be really good at football to know what to do in those situations. It's not like, well, these guys are too stupid. It's not about stupid. It's about you're not one of the premier quarterbacks that can actually process at such a high level that in 1.5 seconds, 7 people are going to be in your face. What do? There's 15 people in the world that can handle that situation. So, anyways, I don't even know how we got here. But the pressures for the Packers are actually quite low, 25.5. Now, I think they sent a lot at Will Levis, which he handled quite well, which is great because that's sort of the initial test. The first time out there for a guy like Malik, you get the Colts are going to say, we're coming after him. If you can handle that, now you have to back off. But not only that, now the Titans say, I don't know if that's the best strategy. But when you got a guy like Will Levis that consistently has put on tape that he can't handle it, I'm telling you right now, Jeff Hafley is living in heaven. He is so happy. Now, he's not going to be happy against maybe the Texans and some of these other guys that can handle it, but you get Will Levis or Bryce Young or Caleb Williams, it's just hunt. Yeah, maybe we'll get bit once in a while. Maybe he'll get a big pass off. Shucks. There's a touchdown. That hurts, whatever. But 9 times out of 10, it ain't going to go that way. It's a sack. It's a throwaway. It's a pick. It's a whatever. They are going to spend the whole day getting in that dude's head, nonstop, terrorizing. And I genuinely think, and again, this is for another day. There's too much content to get it even in this week, and I apologize for that. There was a guy who did a little short film breakdown on Jeff Hafley's defense. I think I saved it somewhere. I'll try to go back and find it. But he showed the coverage rotation. And remember, Hafley kind of comes from a different school a little bit. Like he was in the NFL, then he detached, went to college, did some weird stuff because it's college, came back. I think NFL offenses might, at least for a little while, be having trouble trying to figure out how the hell this guy works. Excuse me, I didn't mean to slip out like that. How the heck this guy works. I'm trying here. I'm trying to keep it clean for the kiddies. But they showed like this really weird rotation where it was almost like this fluid motion, but it also worked. Like guys are just moving in random directions, but as they move, this guy connects to him. It was almost like a molecular, like when he moves, he connects, and then he detaches, but then this guy connects. It was very cool and very fluid. And the guy who was looking at it, who obviously watches a lot of defenses, is like, this is cool. And this is a way to really get inside of a guy's head because you think you see something and it's changing. As you're looking at it, everything you're seeing is changing. Now think about that in the context of you've got 2 seconds. Boom, go. And the good thing about that is he's going to make a decision. He's going to make a decision based on what he thinks he's seeing, and that is fluid by the second. I don't know. Anyways, we'll get back to it. I'm sorry. All right. Time to pressure. So how long generally does it take to get to the quarterback? Packers are 10th highest, 2.88. So that's a good thing. You want to be high. It takes a long time to be able to get to our quarterback. So stick it in your ear. Blitz percentage, Packers are 7th most. Again, I think a lot of that is Malik. I don't know how much they win at Love. I could check it, but I won't. Again, I think they're going to try to go after him, and I'm hoping they're going to try to back off a little bit because that was a big job for Matt LaFleur as well. If you got Malik for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, I don't want to fight about it. Again, you have to put on tape that blitzing my guy is a bad idea. And maybe that's Matt LaFleur figuring out creative ways to do things, whatever, but I think he did a good job of demonstrating this is not going to be a situation where you can send 7 and just have success. It's not going to work. We're going to beat you with screens. We're going to beat you with Malik's legs. We're going to come up with quick little out routes that he's got as just like this relief valve. Like if here's what we're trying to do, but if there's a problem, dump it to Tucker Kraft. Let him do his work. And now Tucker Kraft can work with, 4 guys out there because 7 came on a blitz? So there's a linebacker desperately chasing from behind and a couple safeties who are just praying to God above that they can survive this. Just saying. Let's see. Yards after the catch has not been great for the Packers, but not terrible. 19th. I mean, the fact that 19th is like the worst stat they've had of anything is pretty wild. Yards after the catch over expected, Packers are 6th. So cumulative, not very high. Remember, they don't pass very much. Cumulative isn't high. However, how about over expected? Packers are 6th. Average separation, the Green Bay Packers are 13th, so above average, not great. On average, and I think, I have to look into this, I have a feeling, even though they can track everybody, they're tracking per target. So you can get Christian Watson, for example, he was wide open on a play. I don't think it's going to get credited to him because it wasn't thrown to him. That's my assumption, which I don't care for. It would be cool if they had a way to kind of measure just generally how much separation a guy has. They got the technology with those chips in their shoulder pads or whatever, but I don't think they really use it that way. Rush yards per game, again, we went through a lot of this already. Packers number 1 in rush yards, number 2 in yards per play. I think we went through, so this is the advanced stats. What are we? Oh, here we go. 10-plus yard runs, Green Bay Packers are number 1. Now, yes, because we did it the most, but it's still an awesome thing. We lead the league in 10-plus yard runs with 14. Again, just a shocking number. I mean, and also remember, that was a thing that we kind of struggled with. Explosive plays in the run game. Not all the time, but we've had those years. I think last year, 2 years ago, and they tried to get better at. And so far, we lead the league with 14 carries over 10 yards. Stuffed percentage, Packers are the 12th highest, so not as bad as you would expect considering, it is a percentage, but still, it's been some tough sledding. Only 20.3%, so 1 in 5 carries is just completely stuffed. Success rate is 21st. Again, doesn't super surprise me. A lot of runs just into a pile of guys. That's not going to be deemed a success, right? Success is, every down and distance has a success metric. So 1st and 10, you want to get 4 yards. So if he's getting 3, not a successful play. I think it's 4 yards you want to get. On 3rd and anything, a successful play is a first down. Same with 4th. So on 3rd and 7, if we run the ball and don't get a first down, that's not successful, even if he gets 6 out of 7 yards. Rush yards over expected. Cumulatively, Packers dominate with 122. Rush yards over expected per attempt. Packers are still 3rd with 1.7. I don't remember if we've done this. I don't believe so. Rush yards before contact. So this is not after contact. This is before contact. Packers are 7th. Now that can be considered a solid offensive line metric. It could also just be them breaking to the outside or whatever, but it's pretty cool. So before the running back ever gets touched, on average 1.6 yards before anybody touches them. Then it's up to the running back on average to see how many yards you can get after that. The only teams over 2 yards, I guess. Colts 2.31, Washington 2.39, Chargers 2.81. They seem like a really good rushing team. And then the Ravens with just this bulldozing, not only offensive line tight ends, but just mentality, 3.25 yards before contact, which is just nuts. Yards after contact per attempt, that's where the running backs take over, and the Packers are 3rd. Again, not super surprisingly, Packers running backs, especially the way they're built right now with Josh Jacobs leading the way, this is a yards after contact build. This is frickin' get off me, you punk. They also have inside-outside percentage for those that are interested. It is actually, where are they? Oh, never mind. Not that interesting. Runs to the inside, so inside of the tackles, they are 8th. They do that 52% of the time. Runs to the outside, the Packers are 21st. They do that 47% of the time. So I know this is considered a outside zone scheme, or I don't know exactly the terminology or whatever, but I think the general consensus or the general thought is that means you just kind of like run outside of everybody all the time. It's not really how it works. And that's if we even are that anymore. I have no idea. Would you stop? Good Lord. Fortunately, it's just spam. All right, opponents running against a light box. We just got a couple more. Then we go to defense, and then we'll get out of here. Forgot about defense. Light box, they rank 22nd. So less often than most teams, 41.9%. If we flip it, they have the 11th worst situation, so heaviest boxes or whatever. Opponents with a stacked box. So all we're really talking about is, do you have anything less than what you would see in a standard box? And I believe, I'm not positive about this, and I'm sorry that I don't have all the answers. I'm kind of doing this on the fly, and questions are developing in my head as we go. So a light box, in my mind, I think of it as, like they have one less linebacker or something. Stacked box would be like 6 or more or whatever. And that probably is what it is, but there is a definition out there that essentially is simplified but probably harder to track. It really just comes down to, do you have more or less defensive people in the box than the offense has? I'll have to see how... let me check their glossary real quick. I found it. Let me see. Okay, no, so they just go with straight-up defenders. So stacked means 8 or more defenders in the box. Light is 6 or fewer. So, 7 would be what they consider standard. Anything less than that is a light box. Anything more than that is a stacked box. Okay, now that we got that squared away, they face a stacked box just 16.2% of the time, which is not bad. That's 18th most. 49ers face a stacked box 36.5%. I mean, this is I wonder if the Vikings did that and they just figured them out. Just load up the box and make Brock beat you. That would be great. I would be forever grateful to the Vikings if they not only beat them, but just gave everybody a roadmap. 36.5% of the time, over 1 in 3, they're facing a loaded box, a stacked box. But anyways, Packers, less than average stacked boxes, so that's nice. And again, I generally think that's a credit to our head coach. I think loading the box could have been a good strategy. I think he makes it hard to do that. It's hard to do that with mobile quarterbacks and all the motion and everything else. There's too much spread in this offense. We load up too much in the middle, they're going to get to the outside. So as much as they want to take the run away, you got to be strategic when you're dealing with Matt LaFleur, because he's not an idiot. Sometimes he's an idiot, but usually he's not an idiot. Everybody's an idiot sometimes. He's just less of an idiot than most guys, and he's, I think, sometimes really, really creative, more so than other guys. How's that? Did I save myself on that one? I don't know. Team defense, real quick. For the 7 of you that are still hanging with me, the diehards. All right, pass percentage. So this is against, pretty middle of the road, 55.9%. That's 18th most. Points per game given up. The Packers have given up the 15th most, which is really solid considering after week 1 they were one of the worst. But after week 2 they dropped down to middle of the pack, just 22. So hopefully that trend continues. Yards per game is a little worse. The Packers are 6th. Again, not massively surprising. Not only in the Eagles game did they struggle with yards, but even in the Colts, they started getting gashed a little bit. But, whatever. Yards per play, Packers are going up the 7th most. Touchdowns, the Packers are tied for 5th most with 5 touchdowns. 4 teams have given up more. Baltimore, Washington, the Rams, Cowboys, Panthers, whatever. EPA per play, and I believe we want this to be a negative. Let me just check here. Yeah, it must be because I see Chicago's up there. I know they got a good defense, Saints, whatever. So the Packers do have a negative EPA per play. So overall, according to EPA, they're slightly better than average, and I will accept that at this point in time. They rank 14th best. Passing yards per game, they have given up the 7th most. Yards per play, they've given up the 9th most. EPA per pass, they rank 18th, still negative. Is it negative 0.7, basically average, but, we'll take it. Rushing yards per game, 11th. So they're, it's not bad. They're whatever. Yards per rush, 5.1, ranks tied for 5th with the Colts. That's not great. You want to get that down. Again, the defensive line has been a serious problem. The run stopping, the tackling in particular has been terrible. Quay Walker in particular. I mean, the examples of him just not doing basic things is becoming exhausting. EPA per rush. Let's sort this correctly from best to worst. They rank 14th, still negative. So again, good. And then time to throw. This is interesting. Packers are second highest. Now that could just be due to the quarterbacks. They are more mobile guys. They want to do things with their legs. They hang on. But 3.15 seconds. It also means, in my opinion, we should have more pressures and sacks. But making the guys hold on to the ball more, not a terrible thing. And then pressure rate. The Green Bay Packers are 16th, 32.1%. Again, I mean, perfectly average, but ideally we end up better than average. That would be kind of the goal, I think. I'm coming from a team that ranked like 29th in DVOA last year. I don't want to get too greedy, but if we can get on the better side of top 15 or something, that'd be kind of cool. Sack percentage, Packers are, way down, 30th. That's got to get better. It's just gotta. Again, mobile quarterbacks, it's tough. Will Levis, this needs to be the game that gets rectified. We need 3 or more sacks, in my opinion. That's just what I'm going to put the bar at. Ranking 30th in sacks kind of sucks. What else we got here? I think we did pressure percentage already. Oh, let's do this. Time to pressure and get off and all that as a team. I'm just curious. So from fastest to slowest, the Packers rank 28th. So the average time to pressure, and again, this is a problem for me, 3.02 seconds. We need to have guys getting to the quarterback faster than it. Again, if we're playing a little bit more contain, fine. We'll try to contain and then send a corner or something once in a while. But, okay, it's Will Levis time. There's no contain here. I don't give a crap. Go get him. Get off from fastest to slowest. Again, this is the just getting across the line of scrimmage. 18th, pretty closer to average. Actually, they're tied with Buffalo at 17th, so even closer to average, but still be kind of cool. Get that up. Blitz percentage, Packers are 29th, so they really don't do it very often. Kind of surprised by that. It felt like, especially the Eagles game, maybe it got dialed back in the last game. They were sending quite a few. Actually, let me look if they quantify what a blitz is, because that's actually kind of a weird thing. Yeah, so here's where it's interesting. A blitz is percentage of dropbacks with 5 or more rushers. I've always wondered about that when you are a 3-4 team, because you have a 5-man front. So are 3-4 teams just getting really high blitz rates because they're in base? I never liked that definition of a blitz, because in my opinion, a blitz is sending a non-defensive lineman or an extra, if you have an extra D lineman or whatever, but if your base is 5, it should be a 6th man bringing pressure for it to be a blitz. So I don't know. Maybe that's just the benefit of a 3-4 is you're just blitzing every play. I don't know. Be interesting to know. I don't really know how many of these teams are 3-4. Denver, I believe, is. Minnesota just went to 3-4. Carolina and Washington, I don't know. But I would kind of guess a lot of these teams are 3-4 teams. Anyways, whatever. Just talking to myself. All right, yards after the catch from best to worst. The Packers ranked 23rd, cumulatively 251 yards after the catch. That's not great. Yards over the catch, over expected. Packers rank, whenever it takes me, not good. Yards after the catch, over expected, 32nd, they rank. Now, again, I think that's still going to end up being cumulative. But still, it doesn't matter. Don't let them catch so many freaking passes. Get them off the field, whatever. So that's rough. All right. And then average separation, we want it smallest to shortest. They are 15th, so pretty dead average. Actually, that's a lie. They are tied for 11th with a lot of teams at 3.5 yards of separation on average. So there's also run defense. How much do I care about this? I guess I do. All right, run defense. I was about to say goodbye. Stuff percentage. How often do they stuff guys at the line of scrimmage? Packers rank 6th. That's how little respect I have for my own team. I immediately start looking at the bottom. Like, I got to scroll. Are they 31? Nope, they're way up here. They're 6th. That's interesting. So 23.2%, they actually stuff them. Maybe that's not surprising, because I remember that was kind of a thing with like Joe Barry and Patton and a lot of guys. it felt like maybe 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 times they would shut it down. The problem is that one time they'd rip it off for 15 yards, and it's like freaking, it's 3rd and 14, and they get a 16-yard run. Like, you bastards. EPA per rush. We may have done this already. They rank 14th. We'll skip all that stuff. Rush yards over expected per attempt. Let's do that. That one, pretty bad, 29th. So on average, running backs or whoever are running for 1.56 yards more than they should be. That's just 1.5 yards. Every single rush of sloppiness is what that is. That's got to get fixed. And then just for the sake of curiosity, light box compared to stack box, the Packers run a light box. And this may very well contribute to the lack of run defense. 73.5% of the time. It's the 3rd most of any team. They run a light box. Now, again, our base defense is generally going to be less, and we're just not bringing extra guys into the box. But that does make it harder to stop the run. How often do they stack the box? They are, where are they? The 15th most. I don't exactly know how that works. Hold on. So 67.9. Let me just do the math here. Yeah, I guess they just run a 7-man box a lot less than everybody else. Because they're relatively high in a stack box, and they are one of the highest at a light box. So if there was a 7-man box category, I'm guessing the Packers are 32nd in that category. So it's very obvious. We're either running light or we're loading up. Fair enough. All right, I am going to leave it at that. I got to get out of here. Packernet After Dark has to be done, assuming there's enough calls. You guys have a good day. Hopefully I'm speaking to my Spotify friends. I think that just got fixed. I'm not seeing it getting imported yet, but hopefully moving forward, everything's going to be okay. Also, I saw in there's like comments. You guys can leave comments. Please leave nice comments. And polls and stuff. I can interact with you guys. So if you want, I know some people are annoyed with Spotify. They're doing something with ads. I don't know what, but people are kind of pissed about my ads. I don't know why. They're like, are you getting paid for this? I'm like, they're not paying me a dime, dog. I don't know what they're doing. But they do offer some cool tools if you want to check it out. I don't know. Do whatever you want, man. I don't care. I need to shut up. You guys have a good day. I love you. You're great. Have a good one. Bye-bye. You have a great day. Thank you for hanging out with me. Packernet Podcast. Love you and I miss you. And I hope you have a great day. I'm not a stalker. I'm just a friendly person. Have a good day.